Hello, I am David W. Parker, and this is another Learn to Code from Scratch series. Today we're going to be talking about something very important in coding, that is using Git, or version control in general. You could be using another thing if you want to use Bazaar or Curial, or if you want to learn to use Perforce or CVS, Subversion, etc. One of the de facto standards right now is Git. That being said, it's not the only one out there. So let's jump in. We're not going to do any code in this episode, and we're just going to be exploring what is Git and what is GitHub, as well as what is Gitlab, etc. So go ahead and take a look. I have a few URLs in the resources, so you could go ahead and look along with me. So Git, this is the Wikipedia article. It says, is a software for tracking changes in a set of files, usually coordinated among programmers, developing source code during software development. So what does that mean? Well, it really means if you've ever created a file in the past, let's say you're working on an essay for school or something, and you wanted to create different versions of that. Oftentimes in the past, you may have created a second file and made it underscore v2 or underscore v3 for version 2 or version 3, etc. And you might iterate on that. You might do that with your code right now. Well, what Git does is it provides version control to do that. What that means is you have one file, but you can commit to a certain set and say, this is this code in this day and instance, this time and instance. And so what you want to do is you'll say, hey, this is getting to a spot where it's working. Let's go ahead and commit that code. And now you know this code will always be working. So now you can change it, you can delete things, and you can always go back to that previous version. It's always there. And it's just a way to keep track. Simultaneously, it's a distributed version control system, meaning you can have the complete history on multiple places. What does that mean? That means a service such as GitHub or Gitlab can exist and have all of that history of that file or those set of files, along with your local computer can have all that set of history. So you may take a file in your coding and it works and you want to commit it to history. Boom, committed. Now what you might want to do is you need to try two different versions, and you want to try two different versions simultaneously. Well, what Git lets you do is create what they call branches. And a branch basically means, hey, we have a point of time, and now we're going to go branch off of it and try something different over here. And you can go commit something different. And then another version can go over here and do something different. So you can go check out, meaning go back to that other version. This commit on this branch has already been committed. So it lives on this branch, but it doesn't live over here. You check this one out again, the original one, and then you go try a different version. And now you have two different branches based off the original code, and you can compare them and you can do different things with it. So it might sound a little complicated, and we will definitely do some examples in the future, some just super small code examples. But I really implore you to go ahead and look over the Git Wikipedia article. Git-SCM.com is the central place to download Git, whether you're on Windows or OS X or Linux. And it has a lot of really, really good resources. The best resource I have found, without exception, on the entire internet is the Git book that is on the Git-SCM's website. It might seem like a lot because it has a lot of chapters and it really, really explores things very technically. However, as you're learning, you might want to go over this and learn it and look at it multiple times and reference it. It has a ton of very, very helpful things to know about Git. And there's a lot of interesting things about Git that you may have never known. And I'm going to go ahead and just leave it at that. Like I said, we'll explore these a little bit more in the future, but it talks about branching. It talks about the basics of doing a commit and undoing things. It talks about how it works on the server. Generally speaking, you might not need to do that because you're going to be using GitLab or GitHub, but you might be a bigger company and you want to have your own history because you don't need to or want to rely on GitHub or GitLab to be up. It has an area on GitHub, tools, customizing it for yourself, and then a little more detailed things. Interesting tidbits for newcomers might be things like graphical interfaces and how to use things like that to work with it. So that is the basics of Git. Let me jump over to my file. So I don't have any code here, but you could see here is I'm going to go ahead and clear this out. If I go over to this, it's my source control, and you can see I have different projects here. You can see I'm on episode 4, and I can look at my Git history here, and I can do things with Git directly in VS Code. So if you were following along and you've been using Git VS Code, you can look and do things with Git. Now, I don't know if this is an extension, so let me just make sure. Extensions at, so Git. I have Git Lens installed as well as Git History. And then there's another one, Git Project Manager. I've heard good things about. I haven't used those. Git Graph, that might be a really good one to view a Git Graph for your history. Let me install that. I haven't tried it, so. It says view Git History Graph. Okay, so I've installed this. Again, I'm using Control-Shift-P to bring up this panel here, and I open extensions to go open my extensions for you new people. I typed in Git into the search, and I have these 3 installed. Ones are not installed, have the install button there. So you could see it has a history and it has a branch. You could see their little graph is a little too fast. Let me see if I can bring up a, don't know how their history works with this. You get history, graph, Git graph. So I typed in the, again, Control-Shift-P to bring up this command palette. And then I typed in graph to see what it shows. So it has a bunch of interesting things. So view Git graph log. So here we go. You can see on this add HTML topic, this is different websites here. So I'm looking at, let's look at programming HTML. This is the current one. So you can see here's everything has been happening on the exact same graph. And if I want to go ahead and, it's interesting, they don't have my other ones on there, but if I go to this other website one that I have, you can see I have 2 different branches. So this is the commit, and I'm checking out, and you could see each time I check out, staging it to master. And then I have a different branch over here that was never included. So just an interesting way to look at that. So what is GitLab and what is GitHub? So GitHub is a place to keep your Git history. Now that's a kind of a mouthful, but basically they are online or offline storage, online storage that houses all of your Git history, as well as in providing a lot more tooling. So that's kind of where, I don't want to say where they get you, but where they want you to be integrated into their services beyond Git. So Git is just the version control system itself. It doesn't do things like issues and project management. So that's where GitHub comes along. And that's also where GitLab comes along. So they're a competitor to GitHub. So both of these are big companies that provide these types of services. I'm going to explore GitHub a little bit more real quick. So if I go into here and then I want to go and look at the HTML, so that is our application here. You may have noticed in our code links within the resources every time I provide code links, and you'll see if you go to a project, this is the basic view. So it's going to have a list of files here and folders, and you can dig into each of those folders, and you can see here's my code from the first episode. You can see when the last commit was, so you can click on that and see what has changed. And I haven't had any new branches yet on this one. So let me go to the Svelte one, another series that I'm doing. So you could see I have all of these different episodes. And let's just jump into a random one. We'll go to 15. You can see the history from that day, and you can see all the different commits. So between episode 14 and 15, I can click on that, and I can see what exactly has changed. So red means that file or that line was deleted, and green is the new file. And I believe you can do a split view, either unified view or split view. And so you can decide how you want to view within GitHub. It also provides other things like issue tracking. So if I wanted to create an issue that says, hey, I need to do this, and then if I'm working with other collaborators, I can assign someone to do that. I can put a label on it and say, hey, this is a bug, I need to fix this. So this is a great way to do reminders to yourself, to your team. It provides projects. So I'll just create a project for this. I don't use it, test, and actually, you know what? I'm going to do a new project because I want it to have a template. Show you basic Kanban, test 2. So now we have a Kanban board here, and you can see I have something to do, in progress and done. You can drag things around. And convert this to an issue. Now this is a full issue. I want to click on that. You could see the issue, and I could do the assignments. I can go ahead and assign myself. I can mark it as done. You could do all sorts of automation with this. So this is just another way for you to keep track of your progress within your Git repository. So I'm going to delete both of these because I don't need them in this project. It also has GitHub Actions, and that's a way for you to do continuous integration and automatic code checking. I'm not going to get into that right now. That's very advanced. Go ahead and close this issue out because I don't have that as well. You can close an issue. You can assign it. You can have milestones. So if you want to keep track of bigger picture things, all sorts of stuff. So if you go to any given really big repository, so I'm going to go to Svelte's website, another series I am doing. I really like that. They have their Git logo here. Here is their tracker. So you can see they have a ton of files here. You can see the last time this file has changed, 5 days ago, 3 months, etc. You can see the last commit and what has changed. You can see the number of commits. You can see all of the people who are using this, how many contributors there are. That's like a lot and fantastic. You can see all the different branches, tags. A lot of this might be over your head still because it's a lot to take in. And you know what? GitHub is a very big application. And so I don't expect you to learn all of this within a brief moment, but go into some of these bigger repositories, click around, create an account in GitHub, star something, unstar it, fork it, play around. You can't really break somebody else's code with this. You can't really do anything. What I wouldn't do is go to somebody else's repository and just create issues. That's not very cool or kosher. So don't do that. But you can fork it, and you can go ahead and that'll create the same repository on your account. And you can create an issue there if you want, or just create your own new repository. So go up to here and click new repository and I don't know, test. You can make it public or private. Give it some initial data if I would like. So I have this new repository here. This tells me what I need to do to add my code to it, which we will go over. We're just not going to do that yet. So that's this right here. Go ahead and start creating issues, though. You can go ahead and create a wiki, just like Wikipedia. This is for public. I believe private you have to pay, but so that's really the long story short version of Git and GitHub. There's a ton to it. I highly, highly recommend creating an account. Get used to, go over the Git book, start learning some basic commands, look at some other tutorials. I'll cover some more in the future, but I highly recommend going over this and trying to learn it while you can, because it is something that you will be using consistently throughout your entire career as you do development. So that's it for this episode. Subscribe and like if you will, and go ahead and subscribe to my Patreon if you like this type of content. Thank you.